Good evening, Big Brother fans. It is Sunday, August 28th, and I am not driving anywhere. I'm actually out walking my dog. My dog's name is Zoe. If by chance you hear me yell at Zoe while walking, please forgive me, but sometimes I just have to slow her down. I am fortunate that where I live, the park that I'm walking in, I don't have to keep her leashed because she's fairly well behaved. And there isn't anybody else here, and so I can let her run around and exercise a little bit. And I thought this was a perfect opportunity to give you guys an update on what all craziness has gone on today, because I ain't going to be able to do it tomorrow morning because we'll probably have other stuff to talk about. So I am going to try to summarize all that has gone on. It is actually right now 8:35 p.m. Eastern Time. So Big Brother USA is about to kick off, or I'm sorry, the Big Brother TV show is about to kick off, but I'll watch that later. I got more important things to talk about. Well, maybe tomorrow I'll talk about whatever I see on the show when I see it. I want to tell you about what went on today. So let's recap because I did talk about it a little bit yesterday as far as where things stood. So, I think I told you guys that Michael won the power of veto, right? That's what happened. Michael won the power of veto. It wasn't Zingbot. It was the slip and slide. Michael apparently dominated. And, so maybe I didn't tell you this. Terrence hosted. Kyle did not play. And everybody else played, of course. And so Michael won it. He really dominated. He actually won a movie night, which they may be watching right now, as a matter of fact. And that's probably because he just dominated so much. We'll see if that's shown. Well, it should be shown on Wednesday's show. But, of course, there's lots that's going on today that they're going to have to squeeze into potentially Wednesday's show. Because Wednesday's show will take us through the Power Veto competition through the Power Veto ceremony, which is this period. Problem is that a lot has gone on today. All right, so where did it go on? So because Michael won the Power Veto, Turner's plan was to backdoor Michael, was to get whoever wanted to use it, and then he would put up Michael, and Michael would get voted out. And enough of the house was on board with that move. Of course, Michael was going to have none of it and was already plotting and said, I will take down Kyle. In other words, take him down. Like, I am going to pull some stuff out from weeks ago and bring it up and turn this house against Michael. I'm paraphrasing, mind you. And this is where we get to do the fun dance of how I describe things, and if I make a mistake, or if I don't describe them in a certain way that somebody tells me I'm not being accurate enough or whatever, but look, I'm going to do the best I can do, and please bear with me on that. I'm trying to be more factual and not, whatever it is. All right, so you'll understand when we get there. So, several weeks ago, or at least a couple of weeks ago, that's how Michael told the day, at least a couple of weeks ago, Kyle was talking about, I don't know who all he was talking to about. I don't know if it was Michael and Brittany or just Brittany or whoever he was talking. I think, he mentioned Michael as well. So he talked about, his theory was that there's a potential for there to be another cookout kind of alliance, and how he was trying to get people aligned that would not be a part of that alliance, obviously. And so it came across as he's trying to align it with all the white people, or at least not the black people. And it got shut down by people. Brittany said, that wouldn't look good. We shouldn't even talk about that kind of stuff, or all these kind of things went around. There's been much of an uproar over the internet about this and things for Kyle, and there's a feeling by a lot of people that CBS is kind of diverting attention from it and they feel like they're protecting Kyle. My thought would be they're not protecting Kyle as much as they may not want to deal with the whole can of worms that addressing this opens up. And so they'd rather try to see, well, can we just avoid it so we don't have to? But this is only my guess. And other people would be like, you can't avoid this stuff. You have to take this stuff head on. And I'm not disagreeing with it. but it does then suddenly turn a show that's supposed to be, seems to be geared towards, even though we're older, a younger generation, that suddenly you bring up these really heavy topics that need to be figured out. But that's where we have arrived at again. So all of this stuff went on weeks ago. It seemed to have kind of quieted down, and I'm not saying it's quieted, but I'm just saying it wasn't being mentioned in the house. Well, Michael decided that, I'm going to pull out all the stops because he suspected that Turner might be going after him, or he's going to save his people, and the way he was going to do it was he was going to turn Monty and anybody else that he could against Kyle. And Kyle had it in for Michael, by the way, too. Kyle's still, I tweeted the videos of Kyle saying, Monty didn't pick me. Why did he throw me out there to the backyard where I wouldn't have a good relationship with some of the people that were out there? And, I didn't know if I was going to make it or not. And so there is this Michael versus Kyle thing that's been building. All right, so I'm trying to lay the groundwork here for where this goes. So we know that Michael is talking about, gunning for Kyle. Now, he was saying this stuff before the power of veto, okay? Then the power of veto happened, and Michael won it. So we know now Michael is going to use the power of veto probably to save Brittany, and then Turner is going to have to put someone else up. Now, Turner has 4 people that he can choose to put up. It has to be either one of the 3 people he was out in the backyard with, so either Terrence, Alyssa, or Kyle, or Monty. Those are his 4 choices of who he will be able to renom when Michael uses the power veto on Monday. So the consensus, the thought was, Turner said he wasn't going to put up Kyle. And that's partly because Turner's been really solid with Kyle coming in as the sole other leftover in the backyard. But of course, Turner doesn't know what's coming down the tracks here with Michael. So, this is so hard to tell because there's so many things going on at the same time. And I don't know how many of these things I have mentioned in the past when I've been trying to explain things. Plus, there's people here that have never heard me talk before, or that they've only heard me a few times talk about this stuff. All right, so we know those are Turner's options. So it's like, okay, who's Turner going to put up? Well, there was talk. There's like, well, he may put up Monty, and then he would know for sure. Let's go with that theory that Turner puts up Monty. All right, so Alyssa and Terrence are going to vote out Taylor. And Kyle would also vote out Taylor, and then Brittany and Michael would probably vote out Monty, possibly, maybe. But, that's the way you have to look at it. Who would they put up? And Turner was trying to figure out who's the best person to go. He wanted to get rid of Taylor. He said this morning, early this morning when he's talking, that Taylor isn't good for his game personally. He didn't see how she helps his game, and so he might as well get rid of her since Michael is no longer an option. All right, so this is all laying out the groundwork. So now let's get to what actually happened. That Michael this morning decided, and they woke up the house guests at 9 in the morning. Okay, that's noon Big Brother time. And the feeds were on for about an hour, and nothing much was going on. Then they actually got up and started moving. And so at 10 in the morning, and I missed part of this because I was off doing other things, Michael and Brittany get Taylor and Monty up in the have-not room to have a talk, where Michael and Brittany are going to lay out this whole thing about Kyle and his, other not just this particular thing, but this is the nail in the coffin. This is the thing that's going to get them. The fact that Michael, and this is what Michael has said, is that Kyle is trying to start a 5-person white alliance. He said he didn't say these words, but this is what I felt like he was trying to do. So we think that's what Michael told Taylor and Monty, and this went on for more than this was more than a 5-minute conversation, obviously. But guess what? As soon as they got into the room, or as soon as they were going into the room to talk, Big Brother cut the feeds to Turner sleeping. And so for the next hour, we had a clip of Turner sleeping, and we didn't get to see what was going on in that room. And the internet was furious, as we should be, because we're supposed to be able to see stuff. But of course, it's a really potentially explosive, sensitive thing to happen, and they didn't let us see it. So we don't know exactly how Michael phrased it. We don't know what Taylor and Monty said to respond to this. We don't know what Brittany said. We will only be able to go by whatever CBS chooses to show us down the road. And that will be an edited version. So what does it mean? All right, so that happens. We're all mad about that, but it's over. The next thing I see, and by the way, when they came out, there was people saying, oh, look at how you can tell Taylor's mad. She's had enough of this. She's fed up with it. And she went to the diary room and may have talked for like an hour or something. At one point, Monty went in the diary room and talked for an hour. So we don't know what all those conversations were, of course. But those are diary room conversations. That's okay. But the next thing that we see is happening, or I see is happening, is Michael and Brittany have Alyssa up in the have not room. Now, these feeds are visible. They were allowed to see these feeds. And initially, Michael and Brittany just started bad-mouthing Kyle about all the ways he talked about her, how he wanted her gone, when Daniel was saying he was going to save her, and, you know, all these, you know, just bashing, finding all the reasons to turn Alyssa against Kyle, who's her boyfriend, right? Then they actually went down the same road that they went with Monty and Taylor, and brought up the Cookout 2.0 thing, the white alliance, the, you know, or the non-person of color alliance, however you want to say it. And along with the other stuff that they brought up, that was kind of, I think, really shook Alyssa. And she's like, oh my God, what's going on here? I can't even imagine all the different things she was thinking and wondering. And so she comes out of that and goes right into the head of household room where Kyle and Terrence and Turner are sitting. And those three are oblivious that all this stuff has been going on. So now Michael and Brittany have told Monty and Taylor and Alyssa all this. The only person left for them to tell, really, is Turner and Terrence. Fast forward a little bit, okay? Alyssa goes downstairs. She's just like, I don't even want to, you know, she's giving kind of a semi-cold shoulder to Kyle, and Kyle doesn't understand why. But meanwhile, upstairs in the head of household room, Brittany and Michael, or actually initially it was Michael. Michael has sat down with Turner, and he lays it all out again. Now, I actually posted the first 2 minutes of this conversation between Michael and Turner, so you can actually look that up on my Twitter timeline if you want to go dig for it. It's probably out there by other people as well. By the way, can you guys hear all the insects that are out here? It's getting dark, and they're getting quite loud. Hopefully you can still hear me over them. So Turner, or Michael tells Turner all this. Now, I have to be honest, I did not watch that entire conversation. I watched about the first 5 minutes of it, and then I noticed something else was going on. And I was like, wait a minute, look, Monty is talking to Terrence downstairs. And sure enough, I flipped to the downstairs feed, and Monty is telling Terrence bits and pieces about this. Now, the feeds weren't on all the time. They weren't quite clear, but again, I did tweet out a video showing a good portion of Monty talking to Terrence. Now, as it turns out, first of all, upstairs, Turner was kind of like, I can't, wow, this is amazing. And he didn't, some people felt like, and again, I haven't watched it all, so I'm going by what others said, but some people felt like Turner was not completely giving up on Kyle, and it was kind of defending him a little bit. I'm not 100% sure. It doesn't matter in the end. In the end, he seems to have flipped completely, but we'll get to that in a couple more minutes. Okay. Sorry, had a text message from my wife. So they're upstairs talking still, Monty and Turner, and downstairs, Turner and Michael and Brittany eventually join them. And downstairs in one of the bedrooms, Monty is talking to Terrence. Now, Monty is trying to explain things to Terrence and saying, I know last week you first heard about the Leftover Alliance, but understand that I suspect that Kyle wasn't being completely up and honest with you, and I know that names were thrown under the bus and how things went. And then he went on to do this whole, Kyle is, they're saying that Kyle was trying to form an alliance that only was non-POC is what he said, person of color. So he didn't say an all-white alliance, he just said a non-POC alliance. Terrence, I don't think, was quite grasping all of this. He didn't quite understand. He got mad at the thought because he's like, well, what are they talking about? We've gone after each other all this whole time. How are we forming an alliance of all? He thought maybe they thought maybe that there was that Kyle was thinking there was a person of color alliance, and Terrence is going, why would they think that? Understand, Terrence didn't think that this was Kyle, I don't think, at the time. I think Terrence misunderstood Monty. Turns out that I think Terrence doesn't hear very good in his right ear, and that's the side of the bed that Monty was sitting on when he was talking to him. So Terrence wasn't catching all of this, but he was catching enough to get bothered. But for some reason, he seemed to apparently think that Monty was talking about Michael and Brittany. And when he said that they were trying to form a non-person of color alliance or an all-white alliance, Terrence seemed to think that maybe that was Michael and Brittany, and that's what they were doing, like at this moment when they were going around this morning doing stuff. And so, that happened. Now, we didn't understand that at the time. When it happened, when I watched this talk, you didn't see it happen. It just seemed like Terrence was like, okay, yeah. And then Kyle actually comes into the room, and so they kind of stopped talking. Fast forward another bit of time here, and Monty leaves, and then Kyle gets up to go leave, and he looks down at Terrence is like something. It's like, is everything okay or whatever? Terrence goes, yeah, I'm still trying to figure this out. Monty was telling me something about there's some people that think there's an all black alliance, and they're trying to form and he said, I think. He said, like, Brittany and Michael are trying to form a non-person of color or an all-white alliance. Now, again, I'm not getting it quite exact, probably, and I would encourage you to go back and check my timeline because I did tweet these moments that I'm talking about because I strive to be as accurate as possible. But he's saying something to that effect. What Kyle heard was, he's like, what the hell? What's going on? Why are... That's no way would anybody do something like that. I mean, he is just like flipping out. Like, who would talk about doing something like that? And I think Kyle was honestly flabbergasted and thought, what the hell's going on? And he's like, that's what Michael's doing to try to turn, to try to keep in the house, is trying to form a all-white alliance or something. And so he kind of gets flustered and storming out, and he leaves. And then, no kidding, like 15 seconds later, Monty comes in, and Terrence says, yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what you told me, and that whole thing about the white alliance, and that Michael and Brittany are forming it. And Monty's like, no, that was Kyle I was talking about. And Terrence just goes, oh. I mean, if it weren't so, I'm laughing here, but he's like, oh my God, what a comedy of errors. And that was enough for Kyle. I think what happened was, and we only got so many feeds, and I have to do a little bit of guesswork here, but the next thing I see is Kyle is in talking with Alyssa. And he kind of wakes her up like, I want to talk to you or something. I feel alone. And I think in that conversation with Alyssa, she kind of says, he kind of gets it out of her like, well, what was going on? What are you were told? And she kind of says, well, this is kind of what they were saying, that you were saying stuff like this. And he's like, what? No, this is it. I'm out of here if this is it. If this is what Michael's doing, if this is what they're doing, Michael and Brittany are doing, I don't stand a chance. It sounded to me like he was basically saying, I'm ruined. Not even inside the game, but just, as a person, I'm done. this will kill, this will be horrible for me. I mean, the guy is on TikTok. He probably knows what happens if you say and do the wrong thing. And so he kind of gets super flustered. Again, I have this video posted because this is kind of near the end of the story here. She says maybe you should go talk to them or something, and he gets up like he's going to go talk to him, but he gets up and he kind of walks to the diary room, and they won't. They say it's basically we didn't know what was going on, but it seems like I think Taylor was in the diary room at the time, so it says the diary room is unavailable. So he's like, "Can I go to the upstairs one?" Of course, they don't answer him, so he walks upstairs, presses the button upstairs, and they get to say the diary room is unavailable. He's like, "I need to talk to somebody now," and he's sitting upstairs on the landing when you hear the downstairs diary room door open because it's really noisy. And then he gets up and walks downstairs, goes to the diary room, pushes the button, they let him in, he goes into the diary room door, and as soon as he goes in, as the door is shutting, the storage room door opens and out walks Taylor, which is just kind of funny because it's like, I mean, he's walking in, his game is being ruined, and Taylor walks out, and she's got her Lay's potato chips in her hand. And it's like, you couldn't make this stuff up. You couldn't write it this way. You could write it this way, but it wasn't written this way. It's just the way it happened. And so, last we've seen Kyle, he was going into that diary room. Also, while some of this stuff was going here at the end, Monty was up talking with Turner and basically telling Turner, I didn't watch all this, I'm summarizing it, but the gist of it was, it seemed like Monty put in a hard push for Kyle to get nominated. Like, I think Monty's saying Kyle's got to go. And I think Turner was buying into it towards the end. And then the feeds went down for an hour. We don't know why. Actually, no, the feed was down for more than an hour. Feeds went down. Yeah, the feeds went down for an hour, and then they came back. And Kyle was nowhere to be seen, but the house guests were not talking like something bad had happened. Matter of fact, Alyssa was up in the head of household room with Turner. And then downstairs they were making some food. The other three were making, or five. I don't know. The other four were making food, I guess. And nobody was saying anything like, "Oh, I wonder where Kyle is." Or there was talk. Alyssa made a comment of, maybe we get to see the movie tonight. It sounds like Michael was going to take Turner and Alyssa and then somebody else. And Alyssa said, "I wonder who the other person Michael's taking is." And she said something like, "Well, it's not going to be Michael." Or not, I'm sorry, "It's not going to be Kyle." And they laughed about it. Now, if Kyle had left the house, or if they knew anything about that, they wouldn't be joking about it. First of all, if Kyle had left the house or, whatever, and they'd been told, they would have been a totally different reaction in that house. That house would have been completely different, and it wasn't. So I don't think at this point Kyle has left, or they've been told if Kyle has left. And I don't know if Kyle will leave, by the way. I just don't know. And by the time you hear this, you'll probably know more than I do right now. It's almost, I've been doing this for like 23 minutes, so it's almost 9 o'clock Eastern time, 6 o'clock Big Brother time. But the feeds have been down again. They went down again, and I thought at first, oh, that's not a good sign. But then somebody reminded me that it may be for the movie. So it may be for the movie that it's down now, and it could be down for several hours for that. But if they don't come back sometime soon, I'm not sure what's going to happen. And I do not know what's going on with Kyle. I don't know if he's going to leave. He may not leave. Maybe they'll talk him into staying. But I'm telling you, man, if he stays, I bet you money that Kyle puts him on the block and he gets evicted on Thursday. That's almost assured. Of course, if he leaves anyways, I don't know if they'll leave things the same or not. Because Kyle wasn't nominated, but he was a potential replacement. And the way Julie explained it last time, since that person could possibly go, we're bypassing this week's eviction. So they could pull the same thing again this week. I don't know. I'm not sure. And then one other question people were asking is, what happens if a jury member leaves the show? The answer is America gets the vote. At least that's what happened when Shima was evicted from the show when she was a jury member. So we'll see. We'll see. Really, lots of going on. Maybe I'll have more to tell you tomorrow. Thanks for listening, guys. And I am including a picture of the sunset in this episode's cover because there's a really beautiful sunset here in Indiana. All right. Everybody be well. Thanks to my my patrons. I'm a bit tongue-tied now. Thank you to my patrons and anybody else for your support. you guys have a good evening or morning, and I will talk to some of you again tomorrow. All right? Be well. Bye-bye.